Durin had heartily celebrated his victory against the northern lizards when he was called south to defeat another lizard invasion. This force had two large blocks of warriors flanked on either side by mighty lizards. Scowling, Durin ordered his scouts behind enemy lines. Hey, what's going on, 9th Age? This is Obsidian Anubis, and I'm back with Game 3 of the OFCC tournament. This time it's the Pale Company versus another Saurian Ancient list. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the Saurian Ancient list, on the far left side, there was a Tower Saur with a Skink Priest and a Giant Bow. Next to that was a group of 5 Raptor Riders. You'll notice they have a little blue icon. That means they were one of the 3 units I marked for this for the second objective for this scenario. Next to them is a Spearback next to the building. And then in the center, he had 2 big blocks, one of 28 Saurus warriors with full command and spears. There's also the BSB in there. He's the one with he's kind of like the red lizard. Next to them is the second block with 29 Saurus warriors, full command and hand weapon and shield. And then a second Spearback. And then a second Tower Saur with a great bow as well. And then over here on the far right is a Saurus Old Blood on an Alpha Carnosaur. And then behind that is 3 Cayman. I can count. That is 3 Cayman. You can also see my Ghost Riders in this image. So this is after the first turn. So I had Vanguard and then managed to move my light infantry behind, or excuse me, light cavalry behind enemy lines. For the rest of my list, I kind of more or less hid in the back behind this small forest. So in the forest, I have my Hunters, which are just 10 skirmishers. Behind the forest, I have the Followers of Uller, so 23 Flagellants, and the 13th Cohort, which is 48 Halberdiers with full command and the War Banner. And with them is Barak the Grim. He is a BSB with the Winter Cloak. And Radar the Raven. He is an Inquisitor with the Axe of Battle. And then you can also see Gillian and the Uller's Coach, which is a level... a Wizard Master who knows 3 spells of Divination on a Arcane Altar that gives lightning reflexes. And then over here, more on my left flank, I have the Gravediggers, which are just 20 heavy infantry with full command. And then I have my 2 artillery pieces, which so far have not been doing what they're supposed to. I have the Siren Scream Cannon and the Banshee's Wail Mortar. And then hiding behind the hill, I have the Pale Riders, which is 5 knights with great weapons, and they have a musician. And then on the far left of this picture, I have the Sacred Scythes, which is 10 Knightly Order with full command. And then with them is my general, Father York Durin. He is a prelate. He is the Blessed Sword, and then the Armor of Destiny. So, as you can imagine, I got first turn because I managed to both Vanguard and then move my troops up here. I think we took turns placing, and then I just dropped my entire army, if I remember correctly. So for marked units, I marked my opponent's Raptor Riders and the Saurus Warriors and the other Saurus Warrior blocks. So both Saurus Warrior blocks and the Cauldron Riders. My opponent, he marked, let's go back a few pages. So he marked the Pale Riders, that's what the red icons are for, the Gravediggers, and then the Knights of the Sacred Scythe. Alright, so in first turn, movement, I didn't really move too much other than my Readers up behind my opponent's lines. And then in shooting, the Readers managed to kill off an entire Cayman and I think put a wound or 2 on the second. My Mortar finally did what it was supposed to and landed a shell in the middle of the block of Spearmen, and you can see peeled off about a rank and a half of them, so that was really impressive. Other than that, I think that was all my shooting, so that brings us to Saurian Ancient turn 1. So up on the left, my opponent moved up, and then realizing that if he kept staying back, he was just shot to pieces, he moved up pretty aggressively on the right flank as well. You can see the Spearback turned around to face my Readers to see if he could chase them off. And then between shooting with the Spearback and the Bolt Thrower, from the Great Bow, excuse me, he managed to pluck off, looks like 5 of my Knights of the Sacred Scythe, which was not good. And that brings us to the Pale Company turn 2. So I just declared a charge with my Knights into the Wizard on the Tower Saur. I didn't want to get flanked with the Raptor Riders if I didn't manage to break my opponent. So I ended up having to sacrifice my Pale Knights as chaff to come block the Raptor Riders so that they couldn't charge into my Knights, which is unfortunate because they were one of the marked units, but I kind of had to. Otherwise, if I didn't break the Tower Store, I was sacrificing not only a marked unit, but my general as well. Over here on the right side, you can see that my opponent did manage to go 2 of my readers with his spearback. I think I did panic, but I did manage to rally this turn. And then in Magic, I managed to get off Varloon's Blessing, which gave me a reroll to Wound. This is pictured actually after combat, so it looks like I lost 2 Knights. And I didn't... There is a dice behind there. I think it's 3, maybe? I think I put like 3 wounds or so on the Tower Sword, but I didn't kill it, and I didn't break it, so it's a good thing I moved my Knights up to chaff up my opponent. So my opponent, on his second turn, charged with his general into my Flagellants. I was okay with this. So since my cannon can't seem to hit the broadside of a bond, because I think it misfired already this game, and is out for the rest of the game, I didn't really have a way with dealing with these large lizards or dinosaurs. So the only two units I really have that could do anything were my Flagellants and my Knights of the Sacred Scythe. So they will caught up with the Wizard and the Tower Sword. So having my opponent charge the Flagellants was probably the best option that I could hope for. Because with Strength 5, I can put through a couple wounds, and I'm crazy, so I'm never going to go anywhere. So I'll probably lose a few guys. I mean, I'll probably lose a lot of guys, but so far I've been really impressed with the Flagellants throughout this tournament. You can see that my Hunters, which are no longer in this picture, they managed to pick off, I think, the final wound off the Cayman, so my opponent only has 1 Cayman left. As you can imagine, the Raptor Riders charged into my Pale Riders, so that's probably going to be the death of them. And then this is what it looks like on the right side after combat. So you can see I lost 10. So 10 of my Flagellants died, but it looks like I did manage to put 3 wounds on my opponent, so he only has 2 wounds left. So I think eventually I might grind him down. I'll probably, like I said, lose most of my Flagellants in the process, but if I can get rid of his general in return for the Flagellants, I will take that trade. I mean, Flagellants are about 400 points, while his general is worth quite a bit more. I think almost 1,000 points plus the 200 for being a general. So if I could make that trade, I'd be okay with that. This is what the center of the board looks like. You can see my opponent just shot some of my heavy infantry, the Gravediggers, and killed a couple of them. You can also see that my cannon, like I said, misfired either my first turn or my second turn. I don't remember, and so it's out for the rest of the game. So it's now misfired all 3 games and has broken completely for all 3 games. So it has yet to survive an entire game without misfiring. Luckily, my mortar has not misfired yet. You can also see in the top left of this picture, I did manage to finally kill off that Tower Sword, although I did lose a couple more Knights in the process. And then my opponent easily managed to kill off my Pale Riders, and he elected not to overrun because he didn't think he was going to get far enough, so he just turned to face my Knights in the front. Alright, so this brings us to Pale Company turn 3, so I just kind of moved my readers around to start shooting at that Cayman again. I charged my Knights and my General into the Raptor Riders. I'm going to have the initiative, and I think I only have 3 Knights plus my General, so I might not be able to kill all of them before my opponent goes, but I'm hoping I can at least kill enough of them that they break and I can chase them down. I don't remember if my mortar hit the Saurians again this turn. I know it hit him a couple times. I don't think it did this turn, though. But in close combat, yeah, I lost another 6 or so Flagellants, but I managed to take off those last 2 wounds on my opponent, so that was really helpful. You can see that I did get, it looks like the scrying bubble off, and I think that's the stars align next to the Flagellants. So the combination of those spells really helped and managed to kill off my opponent's general. My readers also managed to put 2 wounds on the Cayman, so it only has 1 wound left. And then over on the left side, I don't remember if I killed the Raptor Riders to a man or if I broke them and chased them down and caught them and then ran into the back of the spearback. But either way, that's what happened. So now we bring it to Saurian Ancient turn 3, and so this is where he declared a charge. So he declared a charge with both Saurus Warriors and the Tower Sword into the Halberdiers, and a charge with the Cayman into the Flagellants, which I was like, I'm okay with that. I mean, I may lose a couple more Flagellants, but I'm pretty sure I can kill that Cayman. You can see I countercharged with the 1 unit of Gravediggers into the flank of the one Saurus Warrior block that made it in. The other one didn't quite make it in. So this is what it looks like before combat, and this is what it looks like after combat. Yeah, so my Flagellants easily managed to kill the Cayman. No surprise or problem there. I ended up losing quite a few Halberdiers. I think I lost probably a dozen or so Halberdiers. And I only managed to kill a few of the Saurus Warriors in return. But luckily I was steadfast since my opponent was in the forest, and I had a lot of banner ranks and bonuses. So I ended up holding, which was what I needed. And then my knights easily managed to kill the spearback on my opponent's turn. So that brings us to Pale Company turn 4. So I elected not to charge my general into the flank of the spear Saurus Warriors. I'm not sure if I could have made that charge because of the building. So I elected just to kind of move them up so that I could get into a flank or possible real charge if I needed to later. However, I did charge the Flagellants into the flank of that Tower Sword. Again, I think they're going to be my best option at killing that thing because with being strength 5, they're really the only ones that can have a chance of getting wounds off on that. You can see that I already have some of my magic cards up, so it looks like I did get quite a few spells off, which was definitely helpful. My opponent's wizard is dead at this point, so that definitely helped. And then in shooting, my mortar hit the spearback, this Saurus Warrior spears, and peeled off another rank or so. So in close combat, I ended up killing the Tower Sword to a man, or my Flagellants managed to take all the wounds off the Tower Sword. I broke the Saurus Warriors, which I gave chase with my Flagellants because I had to because they're crazy, and I chased with my heavy infantry, the small group, the Gravediggers. This might have been my biggest mistake of the game. I probably shouldn't have chased with them, given that they're a scoring or a marked unit. I probably should have elected not to chase, but I didn't want to chase with my Halberdiers because if I got caught in the woods, I would lose all my steadfast. So as you can see, I didn't even catch the Saurus Warriors either. So it was funny. My opponent broke 2 or 3 times in this game with his Saurus Warriors, and every time he ran away, he rolled like 10 or higher for his fleet check, so I never caught anything. Yeah, so that brings us to Saurian Ancient turn 4, and this is the only picture I have for it because this is really the only thing that mattered. He rallied his Saurus Warriors, and his other Saurus Warriors easily defeated the Gravediggers. So my opponent now has 2 of my scoring units, and I only have 1 of his. So then we go to Pale Company turn 5. So I charged with, I think, my Halberdiers into the Saurus Warriors. He elected to flee, which pushed him through the other block of Saurus Warriors, who did pass the panic. And then I attempted to redirect with my Halberdiers, and I also charged my Flagellants and my Knights into the other block of Saurus Warriors. You can see my Halberdiers failed, but my Knights and Flagellants made it in. After combat, again, I did really well. I killed off a rank and a half of Saurus Warriors. I did lose most of my Flagellants, so I only have 2 Flagellants left, but all my Knights are still alive. My opponent did rally his other Saurus Warriors, and again, I chased the 1 Saurus Warriors, and my opponent rolled on like an 11, and I failed to catch. So on my opponent's turn, he really didn't have much to do because he basically just rallied both of his units. I think his spearback did shoot, and it shot at my Knights and killed 2 of them, so I only have my champion and my general left of that unit. I went ahead and decided to charge in again. Those of you who watch my channel know that I'm a fairly aggressive player, usually orcs, but Empire as well, although this is more of a shooty list. So I went ahead and charged my general and my Flagellants into that block of Saurus Warriors, hoping I could break them and at least get a second scoring unit. However, I did manage to kill more. My opponent did kill my 2 Flagellants. Luckily, I did not lose my champion, though, so I have 1 scoring unit remaining. However, my opponent did pass his break test, so he didn't flee. So the game ended like this. So my opponent just has a few Saurus Warriors with both of his blocks left, but unfortunately, both of them were still scoring. So my opponent got more scoring units than I did. But when we calculated all the points, My opponent got 1490 out of me. I managed to get 3588 out of him. So that ended up being a 12-2 based on the scenario. I managed to only get 2 scoring, so I got 1 of my scoring opponent, and I managed to keep 1 of mine alive, so I got 2 points. My opponent managed to kill 2 of my scoring units and keep 2 of his alive, so he got 4 scoring points. So that brought it to a total for 14 for me and a 6 for my opponent. So this was a Pale Company victory. It's slightly better than my last Pale Company victory, so I had a devastating defeat for turn 1. For game 1. For game 2, I had like a minor victory. I think it was like a 12-8. And now I had a 14-6. So I'm slowly climbing up the ladder. But it was a really enjoyable game. I really enjoyed it. I actually kind of felt bad for my opponent because he had to really come to me in this scenario because I kind of brought a shooting list, and so he had to come towards me. So, but either way, I think it was a great game. He was a great opponent. I played this opponent in a previous game where he was playing Orcs and Goblins, and I really enjoyed playing him. So it was a great game. He's a great guy. Yeah, so this is the end of game 3, day 1 of the tournament. So that means I have 2 games left. Next up is Saurian Ancients versus Saurian Ancients. The Pale Company versus Dread Elves, which is going to be awesome. I've only played Dread Elves once or twice so far. That's just an army we picked up here locally, so I was really excited to play another opponent who played Dread Elves and see how that goes. If you guys saw anything or have any questions, put those in the comment section below, and as always, hit like and subscribe, and as always, game on.